We like to think that the people who lived on this planet thousands of years ago were somehow different from us. But that idea doesn't really hold up. They might not have had access to the technology we depend on today or the knowledge we've built over time. But what they managed to create still doesn't fully make sense. And in this video, you're going to see some of it for yourself. Ancient discoveries that feel off, no matter how many times you try to understand them. So, let's get started. Number 15. Dunino Den. This place in St. Andrews in Fife, Scotland, has long carried an eerie reputation. For some, it is a place of pagan worship. For others, it is a landscape wrapped in fairy lore and old enchantment. Kids have been brought there for generations to hear stories about hidden beings and strange forces. But beneath all that folklore sits something much older and darker. The site is covered with unusual carvings that strongly suggest it once had major spiritual significance. Among them are an altar stone, a footprint carved into rock, and a staircase cut directly into a cliff face. Along that staircase are Celtic crosses and symbols often described as druidic. One carving stands out more than the rest. A strange human face with a broad nose, cut into the stone for reasons nobody can explain. No one knows who made it, who it represents, or what role it played. If the site truly predates Christianity in Scotland, then some of these carvings may go back to before the 4th century. And some archaeologists believe those stories may have helped hide an older history involving ritual activity and possibly even human sacrifice near the well at its center. Number 14. Gakutenku automaton. In 1929, Japan created something that must have felt almost unreal at the time. Gakutenku, a huge humanoid automaton, wasn't built for labor or industry. It was designed to express thought. This 8-feet-tall machine was designed and built by biologist and botanist Makoto Nishimura, and it worked using air pressure to control its movements. What's crazy is that it could shift its eyes, change its expression, and even write characters using a brush. That level of detail gave it a presence that went beyond simple mechanics. Well, it didn't just move, like Boston. It seemed to react. Audiences across Japan were fascinated by it. And there was something strangely human about the way it behaved. Then, during a tour in Europe, it disappeared. Somewhere in Germany, the automaton was lost, and despite efforts to recover it, it was never found. What remains today is a modern reconstruction, built decades later. It captures the form and function, but not the moment. The original belonged to a time when machines first started to feel alive. Number 13. Jianren Cave Pottery. Back in 2012, archaeologists working in southern China confirmed something that completely altered the timeline of human innovation. Inside Jianren Cave, they found fragments of clay vessels believed to be around 20,000 years old. That makes them the oldest known pottery ever found. What makes that so shocking is the period they come from. And these pots were made about 10,000 years before human beings settled into farming communities. In other words, pottery seems to have appeared during the last ice age, long before experts thought it should have. That discovery raised an obvious question. Why would nomadic hunter-gatherers need pottery at all? Nobody has a solid answer. Some of the fragments carry scorch marks, which suggests the vessels may have been used for cooking. But beyond that, the mystery remains wide open. Even more puzzling, the pottery doesn't seem to match the usual ceramic-making methods archaeologists expect from ancient societies. That has led some researchers to believe the people living in this cave may have been far more advanced than anyone once imagined. Number 12. Vindolanda toy mouse. Well, this small leather object from the Roman site of Vindolanda might not seem worth much attention. It's only a few inches long, shaped like a mouse, with details worked into its surface. But the longer you look at it, the more questions it raises. The most obvious assumption is that it was a child's toy. That would make sense, especially since it was found in what's believed to be the quarters of a commanding officer. That suggests families may have lived alongside soldiers, which already adds a different layer to how we picture Roman military life. But there's another possibility. Some historians think it could have been used as a prank, something soldiers made to startle each other. It sounds simple, but it's not easy to picture hardened troops reacting to something like that. Either way, the object humanizes the past in a quiet way. It shows that even in rigid, structured environments, people still found room for small, personal moments. Number 11. Barhill Skull Comb. In England, during excavations linked to a large road project, archaeologists found hundreds of thousands of objects. But what really shocked them was a comb made from a human skull. Well, yup, real human. It dates back to the Iron Age and was found near Cambridge, carved carefully from bone with a small hole drilled into it. That hole suggests it wasn't just used for grooming. It was likely worn, possibly as an amulet. This wasn't a casual object. It carried meaning. One theory is that it may have been made from the remains of an elite one, someone whose presence or power people wanted to keep close even after death. That idea reflects a very rare relationship with mortality than what we're used to today. It wasn't about separating from the dead, but holding on to them in a physical way. Only a couple of similar objects have ever been found, which makes this one feel less like a trend and more like a rare glimpse into a belief system we barely understand. Number 10. Regenerating plants beneath a Canadian glacier. Plants come and go, just like everything else. But sometimes nature does something that doesn't sit right. Back in 2013, researchers studying a retreating glacier on Canada's Ellesmere Island stumbled onto something strange. Buried beneath the ice were small patches of moss and lichen that had been frozen for over 400 years, dating back to the Little Ice Age. They weren't just preserved, they looked dead, completely blackened and lifeless. But once exposed to air and light again, something unexpected happened. They started growing. Fresh green shoots pushed out from what looked like decayed material, almost as if no time had passed at all. Scientists believe the glacier froze them so rapidly and deeply that their cells never fully broke down. It's a small discovery on the surface, but it raises bigger questions about survival, dormancy, and how ecosystems might recover after long periods buried under ice. Number 9. Ojibway birchbark scrolls. Long before written alphabets became widespread, the Ojibway people developed a system of recording knowledge using birchbark scrolls. They may look like patterns, but they carry far more than simple decoration. These scrolls were used to preserve stories, teachings, and ceremonial knowledge, and especially within spiritual traditions like the Midewiwin. They weren't meant to be read casually. Understanding them required training, memory, and context passed down through generations. Each scroll was carefully made by inscribing symbols onto the inner bark of birch trees, then stitching the pieces together. They were stored in protective containers, often hidden away to prevent damage. What makes them powerful is their flexibility. They don't follow strict grammar like modern writing systems, but they still communicate complex ideas. In many ways, they sit somewhere between art and language. Even today, they offer insight into how knowledge can be preserved without relying on written words as we understand them. Number 8. Utah Spanish coins. Mystery. For a long time, people believed Christopher Columbus was the first European to reach North America. That idea has slowly fallen apart. The Vikings likely arrived centuries earlier, but even that doesn't explain everything. In 2019, a group of Spanish coins was discovered deep in Glen Canyon Park, Utah. At first sight, it doesn't sound unusual. Then you look at the dates. These coins were minted in Madrid during the 13th century, roughly 200 years before Columbus ever set sail. And that raises a serious problem. How did they end up buried in a remote desert with no nearby artifacts to explain their presence? If they had been found in a city or near known settlements, you could argue they arrived later. But out there, isolated, the explanation falls apart. Spanish explorers didn't reach this part of North America until the 16th century. That's far too late. And the coins don't match the timeline, and no one has figured out how they got there. Number 7. Roman defensive stakes. For years, historians relied on written accounts to understand how Roman armies defended themselves in hostile territory. One of those accounts came from Julius Caesar, who described sharpened wooden stakes used to trap advancing enemies. For a long time, that detail sat somewhere between fact and exaggeration. That changed when archaeologists in Germany found preserved wooden stakes at what turned out to be a Roman military camp. The site had originally been mistaken for something else, but further excavation revealed a double-ditched defensive layout spread across a large area. The stakes were found embedded in damp soil, which helped preserve them. A coin discovered nearby dated the site to the early 1st century CE, lining up closely with known Roman activity in the region. The discovery confirmed that the Romans really did use these brutal defenses. They weren't symbolic or rare. They were practical tools meant to injure, slow down, and terrify anyone trying to attack the camp. Number 6. The ancient handbag symbols. Across ancient civilizations, separated by thousands of miles and no known contact, there is one odd detail that keeps appearing. It's a small object, shaped almost exactly like a modern handbag, held in the hands of gods, priests, and elites. You see it in Mesopotamian carvings linked to the Anunnaki. You find it again in Assyrian reliefs. That could be explained by shared culture. But then it shows up in ancient Mesoamerican art, carried by figures connected to gods like Quetzalcoatl, and then again in Egypt. And the shape stays consistent every time. A short handle, a structured body, always carried with intention. That repetition is what makes it difficult to ignore. No one has a clear answer for what it represents. Some think it might be symbolic, possibly tied to knowledge or power. Others believe it could represent a real object that held importance in rituals. But for something that appears so often and so precisely, it's strange how little attention it has received. It feels like a detail that should mean something, but doesn't yet. Number 5. The lost city of Aten. An entire city doesn't just disappear, but for thousands of years it did. And it was Aten. Buried beneath the sands near Luxor, this 3,000-year-old settlement stayed hidden until its rediscovery in 2021. Historians had always known it existed. In ancient records mentioned it repeatedly, but no one could actually find it. That changed when archaeologists uncovered streets, walls, and entire districts preserved beneath the desert. Built during the reign of Pharaoh Amenhotep III, Aten once stood as a major center of power, later used by rulers like Tutankhamun. What makes the discovery so important isn't just the size of the city, but how intact it is. Everyday objects were found scattered across the site. Pottery, jewelry, tools, even mud bricks stamped with royal seals. It feels less like ruins and more like a place people just walked away from. Excavations are still ongoing, and with each layer uncovered, the city reveals more of its past. Number 4. Ludovisi Battle Sarcophagus. The Ludovisi Battle Sarcophagus doesn't tell a quiet story. Every inch of its surface is packed with movement, conflict, and tension. Carved during the 3rd century, it shows Roman soldiers locked in chaotic battle with their enemies, bodies overlapping, expressions strained, nothing calm about it. Unlike earlier Roman art that leaned toward balance and order, this piece feels almost overwhelming. That shift reflects the time it came from, a period of instability when the empire was under pressure from multiple directions. The central figure, believed to be a Roman commander, stands out slightly, but even he is surrounded by the same chaos. There's no clear separation between hero and soldier, just survival. What makes it more interesting is that pieces like this weren't unique. They were commissioned by military elites, often to reflect power or legacy. Still, and this one stands apart because of its intensity. It doesn't just show a battle, but skills. Number 3. Medieval embroidered diesus. During excavations linked to a highway project in Russia, archaeologists discovered something super delicate among the remains of a medieval burial. Inside one grave, they found fragments of a finely embroidered textile depicting a religious scene known as a diesus. The fabric showed Jesus Christ at the center, with John the Baptist positioned beside him in prayer. Despite its tiny size, the level of detail was remarkable. It had once been part of a headdress, likely worn by a young woman buried at the site. What stands out isn't just the craftsmanship, but the effort that went into creating something so intricate for burial. The silk, the gold thread, the careful stitching. It all points to someone of importance, or at least someone deeply valued. Objects like this rarely survive intact. Fabric decays quickly, especially over centuries. The fact that this piece remained recognizable says a lot about both the conditions of the burial and the care taken in its creation. It's a quiet reminder that even in death, beauty and meaning were carried forward. Number 2. The Polish pig figurines. At a Bronze Age settlement in Poland, archaeologists came across something small but very detailed. Tiny clay figures shaped like pigs. Each one measures barely an inch in length, yet the level of care put into them is hard to ignore. Every feature is present, right down to the smallest anatomical details. That kind of precision raises questions. These weren't rushed creations. Time and effort clearly went into making them. What makes things more interesting is that the figures aren't identical. Subtle differences suggest they may have been crafted by more than one person, possibly within the same community. The purpose, however, remains unclear. They could have been used in rituals, held symbolic meaning, or simply served as objects of daily life. Even the surrounding site adds to the mystery, with a stone wall enclosing the settlement in a way that's unusual for the period. It's one of those finds that feels simple at first, but doesn't stay that way for long. Number 1. Ancient Hebrew wall inscriptions in Jerusalem. In 2015, archaeologists working in Jerusalem found a buried room with something unexpected on its walls. Written in soot and mud were ancient Hebrew and Aramaic inscriptions that dated back around 2,000 years. And the room itself held very little else apart from the shattered remains of a Jewish ritual bath known as a mikveh, which made the writing all the more intriguing. Some of the drawings are easy enough to recognize. Researchers identified images that appear to show boats and palm trees. The real challenge lies in the writing. Parts of it are hard to decode, and scholars still disagree over what some of the symbols are supposed to represent. One mark may be a menorah. A repeated word could possibly be someone's name, but none of that is certain. That uncertainty creates the biggest problem of all. Archaeologists are trying to find meaning in something that may not contain any deeper message, but for now, it's a thing that makes no sense. Well, that's all from us. Be sure to like and subscribe. We'll see you very soon.